podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
All right, I'm here with Daniel this week. We're going to do a mailbag pod because there's no actual real football going on. Daniel, how's it going?
It's going. Had better weeks, but here we are. One thing that did make me smile, and this is obviously nothing, well, not obviously because you don't know what I'm about to say. I have nothing to do whatsoever with United, but my best mate is a Sunderland fan. And,
okay.
This week, he got announced as the director of Sunderland.
Very nice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're all still harbouring hopes of playing for our clubs, but if we don't, then I guess, this is sort of the next best thing. 'Cause I never thought I would buzz off fucking Sunderland, particularly not when I stood in that away end in 2012. But, that gave me, there's a Yiddish word, nachas, that means joy, pleasure, usually from one's children or grandchildren, but also for people is close to, or general pleasure from things. So that gave me some nachas. So that was good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we're going to get to why it was a crappy week a bit later in the pod. I think we'll discuss some world events. We never really shy away from geopolitics on this show, but it is a football show, so we'll try and get a balance here. So we're going to do a mailbag pod. Obviously, a lot of the questions are about the news we had yesterday, that the Qatar bid from Sheikh Jassim has been withdrawn and INEOS are on the verge of buying 25% of the club. So most of the questions is about that. I'll get to those and then we can have a chat about what it all means. So Stretford Ender Rising says, what do you think of INEOS's bid? What does it look like in terms of the end goal and how is the plan to get there? So Let's lay the facts out as we understand them. It looks like INEOS have secured 25% of the club and it's some kind of mix, probably an equal balance of A and B shares. The B shares are the ones with all the voting rights. The A shares are the ones with 1/10 of the voting rights. The B shares are all owned by the Glazers. The A shares are on the public market. The Glazers own about 69% of the club and have 96% of the voting rights. So all the A shareholders, which is like 31% of the club on the New York Stock Exchange, complained that they weren't going to get the same deal as the Glazers were because the price was going to be different because the public price is about 19 and it looks like INEOS are paying about $35 a share. So there you go. There's the facts. So it looks like they've struck a compromise and Ratcliffe and INEOS will buy about 25% of the club. What are your thoughts?
I don't have much to say on the analysis of who owns what. That's obviously much more your department than mine. But are we not saying also that INEOS are going to run the football operations?
Well, it seems to be, yeah. I mean, I don't know that we've seen the details of the contract and exactly how that would work itself out. But if you buy 25% of any kind of entity, you would typically expect board seats. I think that's fair. And if they've come to some kind of handshake deal or agreement that INEOS will run those football operations. That is kind of really interesting. And what Stretford Ender Rising's question gets to is like how they get to 100%, which I'm absolutely certain will be the case, because if you look at how INEOS has been built over the years, they bought like the assets of other petrochemical companies that they didn't want and then took them private in every single case. And so INEOS is this mega conglomerate of all these companies, like kind of managed on this kind of federal system where you have a managing director of each of the companies, but they're under a big group. So I would be shocked if there is not a plan to get to full ownership and delist Manchester United. And then this thing about the football operations is kind of interesting because that's kind of weird, but that's kind of just management. And given the Glazers will still have majority voting rights, that feels like some kind of either contract clause or handshake.
So, because I was wondering if maybe it was going like this because the Glazers want to continue milking United for a bit of cash. So perhaps it starts at 25% and things happen and they get to somewhere. But I wondered if maybe they wouldn't quite get to 100 because I felt like the Glazers continuing to make money from United was probably a deal breaker for Qatar, but wasn't a deal breaker for Ratcliffe. But obviously the Glazers retaining say and ownership would be a problem for both. But I can't imagine that Ratcliffe's he's not buying 25% to have 25%. He's buying 25% to run United. And then I remember we said when we talked about this a while ago, quite a long time ago now, that the question that we actually really wanted answering is what happens when you die? In the instance of Ratcliffe owning United, what happens when you die?
Yeah. And completely unknown. Does he have kids? I don't even know what the succession plan is within INEOS. I mean, he's 70, so it's a live question, isn't it? So, I mean, but on the pathway to 100%, I'm sure that there will be some contracts, and typically in private equity deals like this, there'll be put clauses, which is about the selling party having the opportunity to claw back in certain circumstances, and call, which is the buying party having the option to take more equity for capital. And so those clauses will be in there, I'm sure. And so it won't just be on a handshake that Ratcliffe is buying the Glazers out, but it'll be guaranteed ratchets on the price, depending on, I guess, the public price of United or the revenue or some kind of clauses in there. I would be really surprised, though, that dividends will be paid after now, because Ratcliffe has been very public that he doesn't think dividends should be paid on this kind of asset. He does pay himself dividends on INEOS. He paid himself over £500 million worth of dividends last year, which is nice. Nice if you can get it, right? I'd be really surprised if he pays himself any dividends. So I think from this point, the Glazers are not milking for dividends. Yeah. And Ratcliffe he doesn't need £5 million of dividends each year because he's spending 1.3 to 1.5 billion on a quarter of the club. We'll find out exactly what the price is. So he doesn't need the dividends. I'd be really surprised if they are. But the Glazers, I think, want to guarantee that if their belief that United's value is going to skyrocket because of whatever the fuck reasons, it comes true, that they get to benefit from it. Or they don't get to look stupid because they've sold it for too little. So, yeah, I mean, I've said before, I don't really know what that pathway is. Maybe they're more genius than I am, but I don't see mega amounts of new revenue coming into United in the next 3 years, which appears to be the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they care at all about looking stupid. They care a lot about missing out on potential readies. I guess the only things that United suddenly get really good without them, or there's some kind of Premier League streaming situation that feels like I mean, there is more Champions League money coming, but it doesn't feel...
It's incremental.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's enough. But I guess they want to try and future-proof themselves if they can. So even if it ends up that we're not talking about any more money, they tried to fleece even more money. Never let it be said that they didn't try.
I think so. Morten Brenner says, to harp on regarding the sale, would you expect there to be a clear structured timeline where, depending on variables X, stake will be available time Y for a given price, with an end date for the Glazers sellout? Yes, I would expect that. Or could SJR end up in another long saga for full control? I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if it turns out like Arsenal. If you remember Asimov? No, he's a science fiction writer. What the hell was the guy called who then went to Everton?
Alisher
Usmanov and Kroenke were in this long sort of battle for control of Arsenal because they didn't have those kind of agreements. They'd bought out a lot of private stakeholders in Arsenal over the years, and then they had this battle. I'd be really surprised if either the Glazers or Ratcliffe are leaving them. I just can't believe that Ratcliffe would do that. So I think there will be a timeline for full buyout. Tariq Amir says...
Sorry, just to finish on that.
Go ahead.
Just to finish on that, just before we finish talking about Arsenal suits, this is as good a time as any to remind everyone. I try and do this as often as possible, that when Mikel Arteta was Arsenal captain and in charge of all the players' fines, at the end of the season, he took some of the money and spent it on a watch for Ivan Gazidis, who was running the club at the time. So every time, if ever you get to thinking that Mikel Arteta is not a snivelling little trouser wearer who loves the taste of boot, he does. Never let that be forgotten. Imagine, what does that take? What does that take the
The
individual
gumption to do that. Yeah,
to go and spend that money on that? Unbelievable.
Most clubs give that money away to their foundation. God, Arteta. But you just can tell, can't you, by looking at him?
Arteta.
That he was like teacher's pet. Yeah.
With his little hair and his little trouser. No, man.
I mean, it's amazing his balls dropped, isn't it, with those trousers? They're so fucking tight. So, Tarek Amir, friend of the pod, says, does this sequence of events accurately sum up the flag twerkers in the no community at the moment? It's got a bunch of Simpsons. It is Homer flying into the cliff on a skateboard. You'll know the meme. Yeah, I have to say, I find the reaction of flag shagging Twitter pretty odd. There's a whole bunch of blue ticks with really long posts. People you'll know who are carpetbaggers and monetizing the audience, shall we say, who are writing these long diatribes about the death of United. And I'm just like, I mean, I know people want rid of the Glazers. Imagine, put it this way, if a year ago it'd been announced that Ratcliffe is buying a quarter of the club with a pathway to buying the full club, we'd all be fucking delighted, wouldn't we? It's just that the oil money was dangled there.
Right, and therefore, we would have all taken what looks like it's about to happen a year ago, before Qatar, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, if it's about to happen, and you're not happy, then it's specifically because you wanted Qatar.
Yeah.
I think at that point, it's time to sit down and be honest about why people who would have taken this and been happy about it a year ago are so wanting to have Qatar now. Because Jim Ratcliffe is a rich man. All United need is to be able to spend their own money. So what is it really specifically about Qatar? Is it that they feel if United are owned by a nation state, it makes us too big to fail? I don't see the benefits. I mean, I've said this before, given the way especially the UEFA squad cost rules, updated FFP rules are written, there's not a lot of benefit now for nation states. So, like, Newcastle seem to have progressed faster than we thought, and they did spend a lot of money because they hadn't spent money before. So that and they put in the extra that you're allowed, the small extra that you're allowed. For what it's worth, why I was told
for now,
Newcastle, what I was told on Newcastle was that they're being sticklers. They're doing absolutely everything by the book, so as to avoid future aggravation, and that's perceived to be what's thought in football. And I mean, the reason they're ahead of schedule also is because I think they've bought well. His dickhead has managed well, has to be said, and it's now the case that there are more good footballers in the world than there have ever been before, and that means that it is possible for more clubs than ever before to get brilliant fucking footballers. Like previously, one reason you wouldn't have players like Alexander Isak and Bruno Guimaraes at Newcastle, and I think it's those two that have sort of elevated the level, players that they've got, who felt like were a class above the players you would expect them to be signing at that time. Except there was no competition for them really, because there's so many good players around. It felt like Isak, I'm surprised no one else was in for him, because there aren't many good centre forwards in the world and good young ones, but you can see why, just because other clubs have players who are as good as them in those positions, but they're also really good players, and it just means that they're accessible. In the same way, if you look around, if you like West Ham have got Kudus and Paquetá, lovely footballers. And the reason they've got them is obviously because the Premier League can outbid Ajax.
Everyone,
can outbid everyone, but also because there's loads more players of Mohamed Kudus's quality have been around now, never before. And I think people sort of just forget about that factor when they assess how these things happen. Yeah.
I do think the academy system that has been kind of copied across the world has played a part in that high level of footballer for sure, and data and scouting and stuff like that. So we have visibility into the Serbian third division in a way that we never did before, and we can compare across with quite a level of sophistication across leagues. So, and that academy system, by the way, is also being replicated into the women's game, which is why I think in the next 10 years, and especially in England, there will be a flood of really high quality players. And the other thing is, as you alluded to, of the top 20 most revenue generating clubs in the world, 18 are from the Premier League. The other two are Real Madrid and Barcelona.
But
so also, actually, that may not be quite correct because I think Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain are in there. But anyway, it's a very high number.
But look at the players
20.
that Lens have got, or Napoli, or Inter. There's still teams with really good players outside of those, and that explains why so many of them are playing in the Premier League. But I think more people than ever before are playing football. There are more scouts than ever before who are looking for footballers, and there's so much money involved. It's much harder if you're good to not play football, A, and B, get seen by someone that can take you somewhere. And I think those are the main reasons why it is. But
yeah, I guess we have to be thankful that Americans still drop out of football when they hit college, because 300 and some million people, that would be an insanely large market of high quality footballers. Thankful or not thankful? I don't know. You pick. We wouldn't want American dominating football like they do the Olympics, but yeah, that's why everyone's focused on that market, because it's a huge. I mean, the level of interest in football in the States, and especially the Premier League, has really ballooned over the last 10 years. If you look at the NBC contract, it's the second biggest behind the Premier League, and it's over $1 billion. So it's really, and it's like 10 times bigger than the MLS Apple contract. But there's this huge level of interest now. And that may at some point convert into actual footballers as well as eyeballs. But yeah, anyway, you're totally right. High level of footballers, loads of money in the Premier League, has meant that Newcastle were able to sprint ahead of perhaps where we thought they would be. But to get back to the original question, I just don't think in United's case, we'll see whether this happens. So what Ratcliffe could do is say, I can inject equity, which the Glazers have never done. He'll convert cash for equity, or write off a loan, or do an interest-free loan. And United will then be able to spend a little bit more above their FFP limit in the Premier League. It's 105 million over 3 years. The problem they'll have is how close they are to the UEFA. 90% this year, 80% next year, 70% the year before of revenues for squad costs. That means transfer fees, agents' fees, and wages. And United are quite close to that limit. So whether there's really a benefit, I don't know. And there definitely wouldn't have been much of a benefit to Qatar, except for could you make more money out of a brand new stadium, which won't happen under this current arrangement.
Well, I think, the thing with Ratcliffe that we know we're getting, he's not buying this to make money. It's a vanity project. He's buying it because it's United.
Yeah, for sure.
He supports United, and he tried to buy Chelsea or whatever. Not something I'd personally do if I was as rich as him, but it doesn't. He's buying United because he wants United. He wants to buy it because it's United, which means that United being good is something that he wants, and he's not cuddly. He's not a nice guy, and it's incredible that he has become the wholesome option here. But
yeah.
Here we are. And with his ownership, if United get the right people in the right positions, and there's no reason to think we don't know if he'll do that less well or better than Qatar would have done. He didn't do a particularly good job of it in Nice necessarily, but United is a different thing. PSG is more similar. And they haven't done a great job of that. They've won the French league a lot of times. Well done. But not with any art to it, really. It's just having players, really. And so
here's the best chart you can ever find. Sorry to interrupt. Go look up wage budgets in League One, because I think PSG's is over 700 million euros a year, and the next highest is like 100 million euros a year. It's an incredible chart. So yes, there's no real art to winning the French league with PSG.
But ultimately, I don't want United to win enough so that I'm prepared to overlook what them being owned by any state really means for our football club and for my identity. And that's even before I entertain what Qatar represents. So I don't. United being good isn't important enough to me, so that I'm prepared to abandon everything that I care about
for that.
For that, and it's really that simple. And in a different week, I'd be fucking rejoicing at this news. And here we are. This is great news for United, and yeah, this is great news for United because it enables us to hopefully have the money that is necessary to spend on the team and the ground, and it gets rid of the Glazers eventually, and it's something that I can just about square morally. So
Yeah. Well, listeners might have caught the conversation I did with Client Earth back in the summer to talk about like INEOS and greenwashing and all of that. Because this is not a public facing company. INEOS, they make petrochemical products and plastics and stuff like that. And not even the final product of the plastics, the chemicals that go into the plastics. This is a pretty high polluting company. And it's really weird that you'd have these kind of consumer facing high visibility sports brands. And there's a big question around whether that's greenwashing or just that Ratcliffe is interested and his two partners are interested in sport. So they own Lens, which is like pretty well analysed, not super successful, but they're making changes. Lausanne, a club in, I forget, West Africa as well. And then they own the INEOS Grenadiers cycling team, which is actually not doing that well this year. Big question about that. They own quite a large chunk of Mercedes, which was obviously extremely successful until F1 changed all the rules, and now Red Bull are winning. I'm probably simplifying what happens there. I'm not really an F1 fan. And so, it's a mixed bag of success, isn't it, in sports for INEOS? The question comes, I think, and it's kind of alluded to by the next question. Bell says, how and why do you think Ratcliffe can bring success to our club? I understand your distaste for state ownership, not going to try and convince you, but the club is still saddled with debt, desperate for new stadium facilities, and we're keeping the leeches. How is this progress? I'm crying. Well, let's leave the state part out of that. I do think there are real concerns still about the debt will be there until Ratcliffe owns 100% of it. He really has no mechanism for paying this off, I don't think, unless there is an arrangement in the contract that they can buy more equity for debt for cash. I'd be surprised. Desperate for new stadia, there's not going to be, that won't be a priority because the revenue upside for building a new stadium is not that high until you've built it. Look at Spurs, right? So you have to spend $1.5 billion to get the revenue that comes with it. So it's just not it won't be a priority. So yes, training is a different question. There may be an arranged way of doing that. So yeah, for sure, it's going to be operational for the next 3 to 5 years, however long it takes to buy the Glazers out.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as how do I know about Ratcliffe's ability to run a winning football club, to turn Manchester United to a winning football club? No. But the same applies to Qatar and anyone else.
Yeah.
The main thing you have to have is the right manager. That's the main thing. We may have one, we may have the right one, we may not. And then you have to have good people around him, obviously. And we don't know that winning the French league again with Paris Saint-Germain is very different to winning the Premier League. So I don't know that Ratcliffe can do it, but I don't think we haven't been doing it with the Glazers. So there's no reason to, we just don't know. It'd be
hard to be worse, wouldn't it, operationally than the Glazers?
Yeah. What's good about this takeover is it gets the Glazers out. It saves us from being owned by a repressive human rights abusing state. And then the rest is up in the air. We don't know.
Yeah.
And
no, I think that's fair. We don't know, and it'd be hard for it to be worse. It will be interesting whether Dave Brailsford and Paul Mitchell end up at the club. And Brailsford, I mean, he was once successful with the British cycling team. I don't know how it translates to United.
He's one of those people, as you get older, you don't like people, but remembering exactly all the grudges becomes just a little bit harder. And I'm sure I've got about 6 in my brain somewhere, 6 reasons why I think Brailsford's an idiot. I don't know. I mean, I'm not.
Well, maybe he can sort out our injury crisis with some secret pouches or something.
I mean, yes. I mean, there's also, he's not someone I've ever thought, I'd be really delighted if he was high up at United.
Right. Paul Mitchell, on the other hand, does have a very good reputation as the sporting director. I don't know where that leaves Murtaugh, but in the, how many windows has Murtaugh had now? 3 or 4 windows? It's not exactly worked out extremely impressively, has it? given that he just seems to be signing off on whatever Erik ten Hag wants.
Yes, and I mean it depends. We don't know where they are with putting in a structure to prevent that from happening. So I reckon if you asked Murta, he would say it had to be that reason. Like it felt like last summer, it sort of did have to be that way. You've just got a new manager. Are you going to immediately tell a new manager who's been winning, you cunts who've been losing for a decade, going to start overruling him with your groundbreaking talent ID? I mean, that seems unlikely. And also, and I think I wrote this at the time, so I don't think I'm just making this up now to be wise after the event, but it felt like United were in such a state at that point that the players that came were probably coming for Ten Hag as much as for United. And United, if United hadn't had Ten Hag, they'd had someone else, for example. Would Martinez definitely have gone to United and not to Arsenal?
Yeah.
Don't know. Yeah, for example. So United, Ten Hag was signing these players as well, I think. So it was hard for United to not let him do what he wanted then. I think the reason why these people have to get gone is because of the absolute pig's ass they made of the Greenwood thing, where the question felt like it was only ever what can we get away with, not what is the right thing to do.
Well, that's right. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I don't know that Ratcliffe will give a sod about that, honestly.
No,
I mean,
he might not. But
it doesn't strike me as some highly moral man.
But
so
it didn't.
Maybe he doesn't.
No, but I'm not going to impute his views on one thing because of his views on another. It just even forgetting that, it did not reek of competence.
Quite correct. Yes, it
whatever,
did not.
Whatever you think about it, even if you think that they did if you think they did the right thing or the wrong thing, the way that they got to the end point was a joke.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. And I think I said with Wayne at the time that it really smacked of an inexperienced CEO and like the handling of that. And like the idea that you could, in an institution as high profile as United, like sneak this through the back door in some way and no one would question what you were doing was fairly ridiculous. But Mark Hughes says, what will be the first major scandal of the Ratcliffe minority era? Will it be he appointed Dave Brailsford as performance director or some shit? Well, who was the...
and Clive Woodward.
Who was the British... Oh, that's Clive Woodward, exactly who I was thinking of. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh man, I mean, Brailsford is involved in Lens in some way, isn't he? But I don't think he's actually like talent spotting and doing deals. Paul Mitchell will be the interesting one.
Or what's his name? The guy who was in Liverpool, Michael Edwards.
Michael Edwards, who he set up an independent consultancy. So, but they may like contract.
And you can't like his run at Liverpool he was like probably the greatest run of transfers in the history of football.
Right, picking every single one correctly, yeah.
I genuinely, like, obviously, a couple of them were quite strong. Van Dijk and Alisson obviously paid a lot of money for them, but Robertson, Henderson, Wijnaldum, Firmino, Salah, Mane, just one. I mean, Keita, didn't work out that well, but otherwise, that is a very long run of success. For not a lot of success.
Well, that's right. One league title, one Champions League title. But yes, they and in fact, like even the recent signings that we were kind of laughing at and weren't sure now look pretty good, don't they? All those forward players they brought in are all kind of performing now, and
they've got. It's
kind of worrying.
They've got a lot of firepower, and I mean, Szoboszlai is someone I've seen do great things, and they seem to have got him working, I guess. I mean, it'll take a lot for them to win titles with what they've got, but the problem is City are winning them in the meantime. So, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Joey Mangini says, do you think we'll win the title within the next years? And also he says, why do we suck? Next 10 years. And also, why do we suck? Next 10, it's really hard. I mean, because Arsenal have shown that you can get much closer to City with just some basic competence, right? They've spent quite a lot of money. They've spent a
lot of money. But they've spent the money well. So the players that it looked like they were signing for too much have actually proven to be worth what they paid for them.
Yeah, and they've just written off the losses like Pepe and stuff like that. So, I mean, it has changed from the Kroenke dad era to the Kroenke junior era in that they've just opened the checkbook a lot more than they would have done previously. So, but the point is, it doesn't take that long to get close. Now, whether it's enough to beat Pep and City and their mega commercialization engine, which is very Abu Dhabi centric, that's another question. So I don't know whether United can win the league title in the next 10 years, but the question really should be is, do we think City will win the league title every year for the next 10 years? I don't, right? And then United should be close there.
It's where United basically have to be good when Guardiola leaves. You want it.
Yeah.
As long as Guardiola stays at City, it's, and I'm sure people said this when Fergie was at United, it is hard to see them not winning the league most seasons. You just have to hope that you're in a good position. I mean, who knows how long he's going to stay? But
yeah, he just signed a new 5-year contract, didn't he? But yeah, hopefully gets burned out at some point and goes. All right, Chris Etchingham, friend of the show, our resident Scouser, says, if you were managing this squad, would you be carrot or stick? And also, would you be tracksuit, suit or tie, or Pep jumper and jeans guy? I mean, there's a bit to unpack there. Erik ten Hag is very much stick, isn't he? Disciplinarian, but he's also T-shirt with a suit guy and trainers.
And cardigan. So I think, I wouldn't say he's a stick guy. I think he tries to be fair. And if you fuck him about, then there'll be a problem. But otherwise, It feels like he tries to treat the players like adults. He's not. I wouldn't say he's he expects things to be done properly. He's not.
Yeah. I was asking around and someone told me that with Sancho, they don't expect an apology because he thinks he's in the right.
Yeah.
And obviously Erik ten Hag thinks he's in the right.
He's not John Wallace, but yeah, I think that But
he's also been really clear, hasn't he? He's been clear about standards.
Yeah.
He keeps saying it, standards.
But in real life, I mean, I'm a tracksuit guy. I mean, I generally wear tracksuit bottoms and trainers or shorts and flip flops, like almost all the time. So by temperament, I'd be a tracksuit manager, but Matt Busby and Fergie always look bang on in their club blazer,
club suits. Yeah.
I cannot remember the last time I wore a suit. I don't know even where my suits are. I don't like wearing them. I hate ties. But when I'm manager of United, I will probably wear the blazer and the tie, I guess.
I do think Ten Hag picks a nice suit. They are nicely cut. He doesn't go for a baggy one. They are well fitted, but they're the two other things. They're slightly short, which is the modern thing, and he wears trainers with them and a t-shirt. I don't know about that combo, but yeah, that's a risk of me sounding a bit old, isn't it?
Well, no, is Ten Hag's older than us, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 53. Yeah.
Just checking. But it is that kind of Euro tight style that he's into. Do we know anything about him beside the football? Like, what does he like? Does he like music? Does he like food? Does he like books? Do we know anything about him?
I get the impression with him, he lives 24/7 football. So, Fergie said something the other week, or maybe it was just a quote after Kathy died, that she wouldn't want me at home all the time, but I now have breakfast with her, which kind of struck me as a bit sad. He dedicated his whole life to football and United in particular. And even when after he retired, the most he could manage was breakfast with his wife. But with Ten Hag, I don't actually even know if he's married. It's never come up, or whether he does. And he is, right?
He is married,
Right, but whether he does anything outside of football, he just strikes me as like...
Because I always felt like one of the biggest differences between Fergie and Wenger, and one of the reasons it went stale for Wenger and it never did for Fergie, was because Wenger was upset. Although Fergie hated it at the beginning, when Wenger was kind of presented as this vain cosmopolitan figure. Do you remember Fergie going, say he speaks 5 languages, I got some lad who speaks 5 languages.
A kid who speaks 6.
Because he didn't like that, because Fergie's a man of hobbies and interests, and he's a man of the world. But what was really going on was that Fergie would go home and he'd be getting pissed watching the History Channel or gambling on horses or whatever. And Wenger would be watching like the Spanish 4th Division. it was, well, like Fergie didn't go, you know what? I was watching Spartak Moscow against fucking Hansa Rostock the other day, and Rostov, or even Rostock, Hansa Rostock, East German, aren't they? Rostov the other day, and that Nemanja Vidic is a player. Like, he was busy doing his own thing, and he was always getting different experts in to bring in fresh viewpoints. And Wenger didn't do that. Did the coaching himself, did the talent scouting himself, really, in some ways. And I think that was one of the reasons it went stale for Wenger, whereas Fergie was always moving on.
All right, Stu Roll says, keen to hear what you guys think about the idea of Casemiro at centre-back. If his legs are truly gone and he was still if we're still injury ravaged, I just don't know. Remember when everyone said, oh, Roy Keane could play at centre-back, and then he got his fucking arse handed to him when he tried to do it. And I mean, it's such a different position than central midfield.
They always used to say about Robbo that when he slowed down, he'd be a sweeper. I guess, I mean, no one's really playing with sweepers by then. But yeah, it's quite rare you see players change positions, I'd say. So he could probably do it in an emergency, and he could probably do it well occasionally. Like, you saw like Carrick did it all right a couple of times, but then there'd be a game, like Fulham away, I think it must have been once, where 9-10, where you do it and you get pig fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he probably could, and it could be okay in some situations. I mean, the question maybe that I would ask to build on that one is, well, are you picking Casemiro in the midfield now? Because
it's a big question,
if
isn't
you're having
it?
Bruno,
performance levels.
If you're having Bruno, who are your other two? And if Casemiro, if you're having Casemiro, the other one's got to be Amrabat, really, or Mainu when fit. So you could do it, but if you're wanting to play Mount in the midfield, you definitely can't do it.
No, and I think that's really clear, isn't it? That Casemiro just can't cover enough ground to be the sole defensive player in there, whereas Amrabat, for his weaknesses, and there are some, has got some legs about him. And
he's got
which
some
Casemiro
legs
just does not appear to. By the way, Casemiro got an ankle injury playing for training with Brazil, so he may well be out for some time anyway.
Good.
We'll find out.
Glad it's still going well. There'll still be people on the internet blaming that on Ten Hag, having like big au fait with his training methods. I find this quite weird. Like, fine, you can watch United play at the beginning of the season and say these dickheads aren't fit, but sometimes, like, it's not a big enough sample size of all these injuries that we're getting to say, well, there must be something wrong with the training. Maybe there is.
True.
But if you don't have,
there are the stories that it's still very intense, which got me thinking, like, in the early years of Klopp, where they had a rash of injuries because he was perhaps overtraining the players. But yeah, I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm not saying it isn't. I guess what I'm saying is that it's so impossible to speculate with authority that it's all barely worth talking about at all, because the sample isn't statistically significant and we don't know. But
Alan McDonald says, why can't we develop defenders through the academy, especially centre-backs? Tuanzebe looked amazing for a bit, as did Mengi. Yeah, it's a good point, actually. I mean, I do think one of the things is it does appear that central defenders mature a bit later than, and it still seems to be true. I don't know whether I have any data on that central defenders mature later and therefore it's harder to break in an elite club like United as a central defender. Conversely,
the sort of the same side of the other side of that same coin is it's easier to buy them when you know that they're good.
Yeah. Tuanzebe, did he go? I can't remember. I was going to say he didn't find a club yet. He went to Ipswich though, did he? Or
who knows? I can't.
I feel like he might have done that. I'm completely forgetting now whether Phil Jones hasn't found a club, by the way, still. Yeah, look it up.
Yeah, very good at Ipswich.
Ipswich, there you go, with Kieran McKenna, who are going gangbusters. By the way, Brandon Williams looks fucking amazing at Ipswich. He scored a goal. He ran from the halfway line and scored the other day.
United are in illness. So. We're cursed. We're cursed. But because Kieran McKenna was one of those people who was all these idiot coaches at fault for all the things that we were told were wrong with all these United. He had crap coaches. He had this. And Carrick.
Turns out he's not.
Borough won 4-0 at Sunderland last week.
Yeah, and Carrick's doing a good job as well.
I mean, they had a dodgy start to the season, Borough, but he lost Chuba Akpom left, so that went to Ajax. So took away the goals. So I guess it then becomes a lot harder.
Sensible_Red says, are you with me in thinking that regardless of if we'd signed the ones that got away, Haaland, Bellingham, Alvarez, etc., we'd still be the same mess we are today? And similarly, if players such as Anthony, Maguire and Sancho are at City, they would thrive. I mean, to be honest, I think you're probably spot on there.
Yeah, I mean, we're cursed. I mean, Fergie did some kind of deal where we would be good until he stopped and then never good again. And it was worth it. But here we are. I think that the one who you think would have been turned into something slightly different more than anyone had he gone, were he at City and not United, is, who do you think I'm thinking of?
Sancho.
Rashford.
Anthony. Rashford.
I think that Guardiola would have turned Rashford into the very best version of what he could be.
Yeah. I think it's probably fair, yeah.
But, I mean,
would we have ruined Haaland? I think Haaland's too good to fail anywhere.
Yeah, Maguire's still, I'm same with Bellingham, but yeah, Maguire's still shit.
Mind you, I think if we'd signed Bellingham at the time we were trying to sign him when he went to Dortmund, would he have got enough games in a crap side?
Yes, because
would that have ruined him? Would
exactly
that
for that
stunted his
reason.
growth?
No, exactly for that reason. Because there was no one in his position. Because what happens is that there would have been training, and it would have been obvious. It's like Rooney. Rooney said when he was 14, he knew he was the best player at Everton. And he realised, and then when he's 16, they just can't keep him out the team any longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bano says, visually, Onana doesn't even look like a good keeper. When he dives to save a ball, when he attempts to block a low shot, the technique looks non-existent. After a decade of De Gea, Onana is hard to watch. Where does the club go from here? Do we give the number 2 a go? Buy new? I mean, it doesn't feel like the Onana that we've seen, though, Inter and Ajax. He had a very good season at Inter. He didn't look like he was diving over the ball or being too slow to get it. He just seems to have been given the yips by this team that's not giving him enough protection. Could be proven wrong here because, of course, this kind of disastrous start for a footballer can ruin your confidence. But it feels like he's too good to fuck up from here, really.
I don't quite agree with that. I agree with more or less everything else you said. Like, what we've seen from Onana is not what he usually does, because if it was, he wouldn't be at United. And so the question isn't, is he really this shit? No. The question is, mentally, can he get it back to a point where he and his defenders are confident in him? And I think he can from here. And you could argue that take him out for a few weeks, maybe. I wouldn't. But the guy that we've got instead, who the fuck is he?
No idea, yeah.
Like,
€5 million. It doesn't give you a lot of confidence. I don't know. He's off with the Turkish squad this week. I didn't watch Turkey's game.
Right,
so
but he's not done very much. So suddenly sticking in some bloke who won't have expected to be stuck in, that doesn't seem like a great option either. I'm afraid, or not afraid, like us and Onana are stuck with each other for a bit. And I feel like we need to stick with him and hope that it comes back. I don't think we've got an alternative, but even if we did have one, it would still feel like that would be the right thing to do, because this isn't, he's a better keeper than this. I don't know if he's good enough for us, but yeah, he's better than this.
All right. I think that's it for the Mailbag pod. Do we want to talk about horrendous geopolitical things? I mean, one of the reasons why you said it was a really bad week for you is obviously what happened in Israel last Saturday, so just over a week now. Just the absolute worst of humanity happening there. And then what looks to be a fucking catastrophic invasion that's going to leave a lot of people, families destroyed, and a population dispersed.
Yes.
A week on, how are you feeling?
So I think I'm going to try and keep this relatively personal, because obviously there's a lot of issues, and I'm Jewish. I feel connected to Israel, and I'm going to explain a little bit about that in a minute. I think that's not to say I am denying Palestinian claims for statehood at all, that I want Israel shooting innocent Palestinians now. I don't. So I've been saying for ages that this is Israel's biggest crisis since the Yom Kippur War in 1973, when they were attacked on Jewish holiday, surprised, and almost lost that war. And I was saying that just because of the attempt to steal democracy by corrupt government who were in the name of that and in this vicious cycle of victimizing Palestinians. And that becoming part of the political system where you've got a leader who the courts want for corruption, who's trying to defang the courts to save his ass from jail. And in doing that, he's building coalitions with far right parties in order to keep himself out of jail, and is focused on that. So you have that going on, and that crisis of democracy, and also ongoing crisis of how Israel's treating Palestinians, particularly in Gaza, but also in the West Bank and also in Israel. You've got that going on. So I felt like this was already the biggest crisis. And then what happened last weekend is one of those things, I guess, when it happens, and the thing's so bizarre to compare this even to football, but the thing I thought about at the time was it's like that Aguero moment where you're seeing something so dreadful that in real time that where I was not seeing it because I was at Sunderland, but where you think this is not an eternal moment, where this isn't just this terrible thing that's happened right now, but this is something that is going to last for all time. And the way that I'm coming at this from is that the term Zionist is something that gets used a lot, particularly on the internet, usually as some kind of insult or to impute some kind of lack of humanity, and it certainly can be used in that connection. So just for me, the term Zionist really just means someone who thinks the state of Israel should exist, wants the state of Israel to exist. I want the state of Israel to exist. So the reason I want Israel to exist is because I want somewhere to run to. It's not a religious thing. I don't think that Israel has any more right, that the Jews have any more right to Israel than Palestinians do, because it says in the Torah that I'm giving you Israel. I can't believe I have to say that, but there are people who think to the contrary. But just to say that of myself, so if you say, oh, you're a Zionist, I mean, yeah, I do want Israel to exist. Beyond that, everything about what Israel constitutes is up for grabs. I don't want an ethno-state where Jews have more rights than people in it who aren't Jews, whoever they are. But so to explain, I guess, my connection to Israel, there's a religious connection. And I don't say this in terms of, I think that God gave the Jewish people Israel. I say that in terms of when Jews pray, we sing, we talk a lot about returning to Zion, returning to Israel, and that seeps into the culture. And if you're raised with those prayers that you say every day, every week, however often you say them, when you eat 3 times a day, when you eat, all that, it seeps into your being, and this kind of building a relationship with Israel. And I don't again say this because I think it gives us or me or anyone any ownership over Israel, but I say it because I'm trying to explain the depth of the connection to Israel, that it starts as this thing when you're a kid that you talk about and is built into this ideal and idealized version of the world and how the world's going to be and how you would like the world to be, that is about Israel. And the Jews obviously were physically in Israel until they were removed from Israel, first by the Babylonians and then the Romans. And since that point, there's always been this desire to return to Israel. And there's a cultural connection to Israel too, that when I was growing up, you have like the religious aspect of the identity, and then you have the cultural aspect. And the cultural aspect, the two things that were really on offer were the Holocaust and Israel. And for me, definitely not defining this massive part of my identity according to industrial mass murder of all of us. So that kind of leaves Israel. And not all of us, obviously, but I and lots of people like me, we get taught Hebrew as kids. We talk to our mates sometimes in Hebrew. We have slang in Hebrew. We spend time in Israel growing up. I went to Israel for a month after my GCSEs. Loads of Jewish kids do that. I spent my gap year, spent a year in Israel. I got married in Israel. My best man lives in Israel. A lot of various others of my best mates live in Israel. So I've been to Israel about 20, 30 times in my life. I know a lot, went to school with loads of Israelis. And so all those things make it feel that, like, when you go to Israel, you feel like it's home. I feel more at home in Israel than I do in the UK. And so all those cultural aspects that are all intertwined with each other mean that we have, as Anglo-Jews, we have this connection to Israel. And then there's like just what's actually going on in Israel. We can run there if we have to. And in our living memory are stories from people who had to and couldn't.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess it's our consolation prize for the Holocaust, if you like. Well, here's this. And the inherent contradiction of Israel, obviously, is what had to happen for Israel to be created in the way that Palestinians were chased out of their homes, which, I mean, I can't defend that, but the inherent contradiction. But do I want somewhere to run when things get hot? Yes. And then that's the inherent contradiction of Israel for us. But aside from that, because I'm trying not to get into like claims over shit, but just trying to explain the connection that we feel. It's that, it's that also because Jews are few, when things happen, we all know people in Israel, people who are in bomb shelters, people whose kids are in the army, whose nephews are in the army, someone I know, his cousins felt something was wrong on that day. They texted someone they knew who was in the Secret Service who said, you guys have got to run. Told his parents they had to run. Parents said, no, we can't be bothered. We'll get to it later. Argument ensues. They say, well, if you don't run, I won't say memorial prayers for you. And that was the thing that forced them to run. They run. Everyone else in the village dead. Like we know people, we all know people with those stories. So it's not about something that's happening over there, that this cause that we believe in. It's something that affects our lives on a daily basis because it affects the people that we're close to. And that's the case for almost everyone. So and then when you factor into that, the trauma passes in DNA and a massive chunk of Jewry, Anglo Jewry, we all have this from the Holocaust. Jews running away. That's not meant to happen anymore. And the reason that's not meant to happen anymore is Israel. And I say this and I understand, and don't think that I do not. I'm going to say it's really, I understand that Israel is oppressing Palestinians and the Palestinians need to resist. This isn't about the resistance. I think it's the fact, what's shocking about this is the quantity of people who are dead, the alacrity with which it was done, the people who it is, because here's the thing, right? What would have happened if the Israeli army weren't there? The only thing that stopped Hamas from killing everyone is the fact that the army stopped them. That's not them going in, doing an operation, some people that they didn't want to kill or didn't care about not killing, or a few people that they killed for fun. That's not that. We're trying to kill all of you, every single one of you. And that's the same for those of us who aren't in Israel. And it's fucking 2023. I thought we heard Jude Bellingham Birmingham shirt, the word pogrom. But in 2023 to be using the word pogrom, are you fucking kidding me? And and the thing that I guess has been, I can't say that I've really processed this. As kids, our parents, this one's an anti-Semite, that one's an anti-Semite, my parents' generation, something we took the piss out of my mates, out of our parents' generation, who still felt like more proximate to the Holocaust than we did, even though it was proximate to us as our grandparents. And it's just, I guess, a reminder as a Jew that your place in the world is fucking precarious. And then you see the way that people react subsequently. And so for people let's just say for people in the UK for now, Palestine is a cause. It's not proximate to you. It's a cause. And I don't have a problem with anyone supporting the Palestinian cause. What can be hard to take is when you see, say, the Twitter accounts, that particularly on the left in this one, and I'm not courting the right wing. I don't want right wing people telling Israel to go and do whatever it wants in Gaza. I don't want that. I want the opposite of that. But what I find painful on the left is people who are supposed to believe in justice. If you like at Twitter accounts and like, for example, there'll be loads of retweets and tweets about Palestinian pain. And I'm retweeting that stuff myself. I'm hurting about that stuff myself, but nothing about what's happened in Israel, that the biggest pogrom since the Holocaust just happened.
Yeah.
And it feels like we live amongst you and we have this connection to Israel. So it feels like we're under attack because it's an attack. It's not just an attack against Israel. It's an attack against Jews. They're trying to kill everyone. It's not a strategic thing. And so when you feel like that, then it feels like the tragedy that happened in Israel is not really something that people are bothered about. Almost like through Israel's behavior, you deserved that. And again, like, I'm not defending Israel's behavior, but then why would it be that Israel's government represents the people of Israel and the Jews of the world? Hamas doesn't represent Palestinians. Hamas doesn't represent Palestinians. I don't look at it like that. But then I'm not represented by Benjamin Netanyahu, and neither of the people that died that lived in Israel. That over 1,000 people, babies, children, old people, just everyone. And
just two things I thought they just came to mind. One was something Naomi Klein said, the writer, like moral consistency does not equal moral equivalence, right? We should not. We can weep for the dead Israelis as much as we can weep for the dead Palestinians in this. Yeah, that doesn't mean these two things are the same thing, but we can just be. And the lack of fucking humanity. Like, when you hear a child has been killed, your first reaction should not be, oh, what side were they on? Right? It's the dead people.
Yeah, and it's quite, I guess it's quite isolating that. So I'll give you another example. So I am not offended by the slogan Free Palestine. I believe in a free Palestine. But when the day after a massacre of Jews, you see Free Palestine graffitied on a bridge by like a section of Golders Green Road that has Jewish shops in it, that feels like something that's meant to make you feel uncomfortable. And I'm not opposed to being made to feel uncomfortable by politics, because feeling uncomfortable is quite a good, if you're in a position to feel uncomfortable, then you're doing all right. There are people that are suffering. When we're mourning our dead, but the next day after just this horrendous thing that is done in the name of Free Palestine. And again, I'm not conflating Hamas with people who believe in Free Palestine and don't believe in annihilating Jews. When you see Free Palestine graffitied there at that point, that's like, well, that massacre was done by people that think they were doing it in the name of Free Palestine. So what does that mean? Why do you want these people to see this on this day? And again, I want Palestine to be free. It's not about what Free Palestine is or means. It's about why would someone write it there at that point? And I'm on that day, and I'm meant to believe that's something that I shouldn't find unsettling. No. And I feel like, it's the idea, a small community losing that number of people in that manner on that day it's hard to comprehend. It's also hard to understand how it moves on from here, but we know it's going to move on from here because it fucking is. And it's moving in a dreadful direction where,
and in the UK, there's going to be, and this is the other thing about the lack of humanity, both the amount of anti-Semitism and the amount of Islamophobia and violent incidents is going to increase.
Has increased. That anti-Semitism has increased. Anti-Semitism has massively increased. And it's again that thing that makes you realize why Israel has to exist. It's that vicious circle of that. And the idea that, so the things that Israel, no other country in the world really has to argue for its existence. But there's like Palestine obviously does because Israel is stopping it from, but Israel. And no other country, despite how it came into being, generally has to contend with those questions. And what I'm trying to say is these things that you might say, well, you're paranoid, but I feel like if we are, and I think you develop quite a good nose for knowing what isn't done with ill intention, but we're paranoid with good reason. There are people that want us not to be here, and we just saw it, and some people aren't that bothered. Yeah,
it's deeply unsettling. All right, in true sort of morning show fashion, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back. Thanks, Dan, for giving us a personal insight into that. I do think that's important. And I obviously know your politics because we've talked about it. And you shouldn't have to feel like you need to repeatedly both sides it, which I know you felt like it because you don't. But you want to make your position really clear.
It is a both sides. Yeah, it's a both sides issue. But there are some things you can't both sides, and the massacre that we saw is one of them. And what Israel does in retaliation that's also going to be wrong isn't going to make that due punishment or anything other than a pogrom in 2023. I mean, come on, man. Yeah, a pogrom in 2023 seems wrong.
Catch you all next week.
It's all right.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.